All right, we are recording and welcome to another ASBAS webinar. This is a free webinar provided by the Australian Small Business Advisory Services, Digital Solutions, they're calling it, which is an Australian government initiative. It is also supported by Regional Development Australia and Business Station. So thank you to all of those that have made this possible. If you are watching along live tonight, please feel free to type into the chat window and let me know if you have any particular questions. If there's something specific that you want answered, that this is a benefit of actually being on live, you can actually ask questions and I can answer them. If, however, you're watching in this recording, you don't get to ask me questions. So, but enjoy along anyway. What I would suggest is have a pen and paper handy. If you're watching this either live or on the recording, have a pen and paper handy, because what I want to do tonight is to make sure that I give you something that you can take away in action. Now, webinars tend to be lots of information flying at you, lots of information that you could use, but what is it that you actually want to use and what is going to actually make a difference in your business? So I should probably introduce myself. My name is Stewart Fleming. I am a business coach, leadership coach. I'm a professional certified coach with the ICF. And I have had well over 30 of my own businesses that I have built and either sold or still run. And tonight, I'm not going to be covering off, this isn't a accounting or bookkeeping webinar. This is talking about the very basic stats of trying to get your cash flow right. How do you get that? So that's why I always say, if you have specific questions, please type them into the chat window or the Q&A window. The Q&A window allows others to vote on it. So if a couple of people want to ask questions, the same question, that reduces that. But I'm quite happy to answer any of the questions that pop up into the chat window. So let's talk about when cash is king. So what are we expecting from tonight? Well, firstly, why does money matter? And I guess for you guys, this is going to be pretty obvious, but I do include it because occasionally I'll get someone who has an odd relationship with money. And so I find that putting a boundary around it at the start is helpful. Then we're going to look at the systems at work, some things that you can do to change your mindset around money. And to bring some focus and clarity around that. We'll talk about building blocks for the flow of money. Then we'll get to the good stuff, some tools for maximizing your flow of money. We'll skip the group exercise tonight because, well, we're on a webinar. It's a bit hard to interact. And then finally, we'll jump into some homework. I am a coach, and coaching for me is really about getting good outcomes. And good outcomes require some homework, just to embed whatever it is that you're going to want to do. So let's just keep moving on tonight. So why does money matter? Now, I have heard it said that, they say money is the root of all evil. Well, actually, the love of money is the root of all evil. Money itself is actually awesome. It keeps food on the table. But it does more than just that. It enables growth. So if you have money, surplus funds in your business accounts and an opportunity comes, then you can do something. You can actually take action on that opportunity. So it does enable growth in all aspects of both your business and your personal life, used correctly. It provides choices. And I guess that's one of the things that I find for most business owners. Why did you get into business? If I ask that question, it's because they wanted more choice. They wanted freedom. Unfortunately, sometimes that can take a little while, but with some good coaching and some good practices in your business, you can actually obtain that freedom that you're looking for. And finally, it helps you keep score. If nothing else, a good bank balance is a good way of keeping score on what's going on. Now, it is not the only score, and you might be building well, I know there's no not-for-profits here tonight because not-for-profits are not included in the ASBAS program, but you might be building it for lifestyle. And so for you, money might not be the actual score. It might be a combination score of that and your time. So if it's a lifestyle business, maybe that's what you're looking for right now. And just because you're looking for something for right now doesn't mean you can't change it. You may be chasing growth at the moment and lifestyle later. So don't preclude yourself from looking out for what it is you want. But for me, money is a great way of keeping score, absolutely. I do use it for growth all the time, and it absolutely provides choices. I can choose to pursue different projects in different businesses based on how much cash I have in each of those businesses. So if there are no questions on that, I don't suspect there will be, because that's pretty basic stuff, but I do find it useful just to cover it off anyway. So changing your mindset about money. If you do have a mindset issue around money, maybe it's worth having a meditation on it. Actually sit down and when I say meditate, meditate is whatever works for you. So if you sit down cross-legged in front of an altar with a burning candle or your deity of choice, and that's your meditation, great. But if your meditation is actually sitting down with a book and writing stuff out and actually meditating on your next to-do list, or in this case, your relationship with money and where it is and what's going on, that is also meditation. Meditation is clearing the mind with a single focus. And so if your single focus is your cash flow or your particular money problems, that is also a meditation. The second thing I'd say is pay yourself first. And again, this may not be a problem for anyone here, but I do find in quite a number of businesses, because they're so focused on growth, they pay themselves last. And I guess that's acceptable to a certain extent, but what will happen is that you will burn out because you're not getting the reward. Why are you doing this? So as long as it's for a short period of time, I've got no problems in saying, yep, go for it. But if it's for a long period of time, it gets really messy. So pay yourself first. Negotiate once per week. Negotiate with who? It does not matter. But I want you to start practicing negotiation. If you're already an expert in negotiation, awesome, that's fantastic. But if you're not, then this is something that you really need to get the hang of. Your own style of negotiation, and I've actually taught different negotiation strategies. But I tend to find you've got to find what works for you. What fits with your personality, whether it's a Russian style, whether it's a dictatorship, whether it's mutual growth, like whatever your particular style of negotiation is, what is going to work for you where you can bring it out when you need to. And you may have a couple that you need to work on, but please start practicing it. And you may already be doing this a lot, but if you're not, then you should start. Create an opportunity fund. Now, an opportunity has presented itself, and you may be able to buy a particular product that you sell in bulk. You may be able to take on an extra staff member that this unicorn turns up. Oh, by the way, if you've not heard the term before, a unicorn is a staff member that can do everything. We call them a unicorn because they usually don't exist. But if you find a unicorn and you need to hire them, if you've got the cash flow and you can do it, great, because it's a massive pivotal point in your business. But if you don't have the cash and you have to somehow negotiate, back to negotiation, a way of getting them on board, then great, but it would be nice just to have an opportunity fund. The size of the opportunity fund, I get that as a question. How big should my opportunity fund be? It depends on how many opportunities that you see and what kind of business it is. So one of the businesses I coach have an $8 million opportunity fund. They're a fairly big organization, as you can imagine. There are a lot of businesses that have $1,000. That's it. That's all they need. If they can't fit into the $1,000, then that's fine. But that's all they can afford to put aside. But create something. Start to put aside something that is going to be an opportunity to you for you to invest in the growth in your business. And it's pretty hard sometimes for small business to see this, but really you should try and take superannuation insurance seriously. Your insurances, and again, if you're just getting started, and I don't think anybody here is tonight, but if you are just getting started, go through the pain of getting your insurance sorted out and do it properly. Insurance is one of the there's only 3 ways of mitigating risk, and insurance is one of the big ones. And so by having your insurance in place, good insurance in place, you're going to make sure that your business is secured from an awful lot of risks, at least the ones that are covered by that insurance. Are there any questions on any of that sort of stuff? Is there anything that you think, hang on a sec, but you haven't mentioned yet? Because I'm quite happy to keep answering questions as they come through. And I see a few more people popping in. And so if you do have questions, please put them in the chat window. If there's something specific that you're looking for tonight, please do put it in there so that I can make sure I answer it. I'd hate you to get to the end of tonight and still have questions and I haven't managed to cover off what it is you need. All right, so if there are no more questions on changing the mindset, let's move on. Building blocks for the flow of money. Now, budgeting and reducing debts, or budgeting for me and cash flows go hand in hand. So I'd love to actually know if you have actually got yourself a cash flow forecast. So you'll have, and I guess a cash flow forecast really, it's another way of looking at a budget. But I would have done hundreds of cash flow forecasts in my time. Because every time I have a business idea, the first thing I'll do is do a cash flow forecast followed by an environmental scan. So a cash flow forecast says, right, if I charge this and I have this many clients or customers or sales, then I will make this much money. Now, in order to do that, I'd need to produce this much product or have this many staff, which will cost me this much. And basically, it's your whole budgeting. And just run those figures out. And I know how nerdy it actually sounds, but I love doing cash flow forecasts. I actually get excited trying to see how I can break it and whether it actually makes sense. And I will have done, way more than the businesses I have, because quite often I'll find that the business itself doesn't actually make a lot of sense. When you get right down to it, you would need to sell to every Australian in the country twice in order for this to make a profit. Is that likely? Just no. Right, then don't do it. Or if that's the case, you're going to have to self-fund. And do you really want to self-fund? And if this is your one big cause, then maybe you do. But the cash flow forecast helps you see what's going to happen. The other thing with the cash flow forecast is it's starting to get your brain in the idea of trending. So businesses will go through trends. They may be seasonal. They may be pegged to financial markets. They may be pegged to political actions. So understanding what your particular trends are going to be is really useful in both budgeting, cash flow forecast, and I guess in working out how to reduce any debts that you have. If you are trading fully flush, so no debts at all, it's a great place to be. It's really an easy way for you to have peace of mind and step forward, knowing that it's all taken care of. Setting some clear goals for your financials. Now, in the business roadmap workshop that I run, in terms of financials, we always start with, do you actually have a clue where you are? And sometimes they don't, and that's okay. Look, business grows in fits and starts. And sometimes you'll, and I think about it like the beam of a spotlight. Sometimes you're focused on the clients, sometimes you're focused on your products or services, and sometimes you're going to be focused on the administration, including your financials. So tonight, we're going to turn the searchlight around and actually have a look at your financials. So do you actually know what your profit and loss looks like? Can you put your finger on the number of clients, or let's say, what's one of those acquisition costs? Do you know what your acquisition costs are? So your acquisition cost is how much do you spend in marketing to obtain a single client? So what was the cost of acquisition of that client? Do you have a steady flow of clients, or do you have a set regular group of clients that you depend quite heavily on? So understanding some of the metrics around the financials of your business, but I mean, your business is not just financials unless you're a bank. I don't think anybody here is a bank. Is anyone a bank? If you're a bank, please identify yourself. But your financials, I'm pretty sure if you're a bank, you're not on this call, by the way, which would be kind of cool. Setting some clear goals about what it is important to you and what do you want to learn this week or this month? What do you want to get under control? And so what will happen is that your business will grow, and then you'll get another understanding, and then your business will grow and you'll lose that, or you may shift your focus, and then you'll need to attain that again, and that's okay. But understand that you can go back and go and understand more about what's going on in your business. If I find any of my businesses I start to get nervous about, the first thing I do is I actually go back to the financials and say, what is it I don't know? What's actually going on here? So get yourself some clear goals on where you want to be in terms of understanding your own financials. We spoke about a cash reserve, an opportunity fund. What does that look like for you? Set yourself a goal on that. Is that $10,000? Is it $5,000? Is it $100? Now, I know some small charities that have a cash reserve of no more than $500. That's it. That's all they need. They don't see large sums of money moving through because they are a not-for-profit. And as I said, I know one that's got a very multi-million dollars. So building a cash reserve is really, really useful. What I'd like you to do is jot down what you think you would like. What should your cash reserve be for your particular business? And if you don't have it now, that's fine. But what would you like? And if you don't want one, that's fine. Now, tying in your financials with your other business metrics. So again, this comes back to that cash flow forecast. And I guess that's why I tie it in there back at budgeting as well. So your cash flow forecast and your business metrics and trending, all of these things kind of tie together. So as you get a better understanding of your business metrics, so what are the KPIs that drive your business? Is it, and I would say it's massively rare, but how many followers you have on Facebook? How many Instagram followers? That could be something that for some businesses actually is a KPI. It actually drives their business. It's a key performance metric for them. But for like 99% of businesses, that's not the case. So what is a metric that can work in your particular business? And I had the opportunity to work with a guy that owns a couple of pet hotels. And over the years, he's built up a massive array of different numbers that he captures and checks. But it builds up over time. So what I would suggest is, what is it that you want to measure this week? Now, those that have been on calls with me before, or webinars or workshops, you'll hear me say it again and again. If it's important, you have to measure it. You can't improve it if you're not measuring it. So if you're measuring your financial acumen, that means your knowledge of your own financials, where would you be on a scale of 1 to 10 right now? Are you a 1 out of 10, you've got no clue at all, can't even spell the word? Or you're a 10 out of 10, you've just tuned in to see where Stu is and, you know, does he wear a red jacket for real? Yes, I'm wearing a red jacket for real. So if you are low, if you are less than a 5 out of 10, what would it look like to be a 7 out of 10? What would you need to know? And so what I would say is, let's start, if you're very, very low, so let's start with the real basic stuff. Let's start with your profit and loss. All right. So start with a little budget for yourself. I actually have a budget spreadsheet that's open at the moment, but I'm not going to share it because it's quite complicated, but it's one of mine. And what I've done is I've built it up over time. So it has the number of stores I have, the number of people that go through those stores. It's got number of sales per person. It's got, because it's got some medical rebate stuff. It's got some medical parts to it. It's got the staff costs. It's got all sorts of bits and pieces, but I've built it up over time so that I can see at a snapshot what it is I actually want to see. The biggest part about understanding your financials is giving you that peace of mind and the ability to start to get a vision of where you want to go. I've got a question. What do you use to track your metrics as an easy way? So we track a whole bunch of different metrics. We use Google Analytics to track website stuff. In Facebook, if we'll track what we do in terms of posting either on LinkedIn or Facebook. We then compare that to the number of sales we're getting. We also get with our customers and ask them, where did you hear about us? So any new customers. We also then track repeat customers because we want to see if there's a big hole in the bucket. For me, spreadsheets. I just build spreadsheets to start with because I can control them. When I really start, when I first start, yeah, Excel. When I first start, I actually start with a piece of pen and paper. And then I write down, and I do this in a number of different areas, actually. I write pseudocode before I write software. So my background, as well as doing lots of business, is software development. And quite often, if I'm going to write a new piece of code, the first thing I'll do is write the pseudocode. Or if I'm going to do a new budget, I'll write down what are the key metrics that I'm going to want to measure here. I'll just get a pen and paper and actually write it out. What should I want to measure? What's going to be important in my business to understand? Once you've got that, then you go to Excel and you start putting some stuff in. In Excel, I tend to use Excel because I can write formulas reasonably quickly. If you've not used Excel, has anyone not used Excel very much and actually wants a couple of quick hints? I only know the sum button. Okay, cool. So the sum button is going to get you somewhere, but one of the most useful things is a feature. And can I share something here? I'm going to type it into the chat window. So if I put something like this in the chat window, sorry, I'm having a little brain fart there. All right, there we go. That took me way longer than it should have. It's hard when you're actually not doing it actually in the program for some reason. But anyway, there you go. My brain's come around to it. So what does that actually do? So that's going to take the figure that's in A1 and times it by A3 and put that value in that cell. So I've typed equals $A $1 times A3. And in fact, times should be a star, not a times. There you go. So yeah, that wouldn't even have worked. What does the $sign do? I'm glad you asked. I actually got to share a stage, just a quick side note. I actually got to share the stage with one of the guys from the Curiosity Show. If you're old enough and have spent quite a lot of time in Australia, you'll remember what that is. As a show from a very long time ago. But one of the things they say is, and I'm glad you asked. So what does the $A $1 mean? It means if you drag this column and try and fill up the rest of the column where I've put this equal sign, that it will copy that across. So I'm actually going to, I feel like I'm missing out here. So I'm actually going to fire up Excel, share the screen. I'm going to show you it in action. Does that sound all right? Can we do that for a couple of minutes? No one's going to be too upset if I do that. All right, so new share and Excel book. Here's a new Excel book. All right, so what I would say is I've got, let's go with, this is week 1, 2, 3, 4, and here I have customers, and I have sales, and I can't spell, and then I might have something else here. So what I'm going to say is, okay, so I know that on average my customers buy $20 worth of stuff. So over here I'm going to write average sale, and again I can't spell. Good Lord, Stewart, what is going on? And I'm going to make that $20. Okay, and here I'm going to say that there were 25 customers. They did, and I actually only did 22 sales. But each sale I know is an average of that. So I'm going to say here it is equals. So you can see I've got the equal sign there. Equals the sales times 20. Hit enter, and I get 440. Then in week 2 I did 26, then 28, then 30, and it's been growing. And here I'll just go say 25, 30. Did you know you can do this? So I've got 25 and 30 there. If I highlight both of those cells and drag that this way, 35, 40, look, it automatically knew that the difference between that was 5. And so the next one should be that, and therefore it creates a sequence. Isn't that cool? All right. Now, I'm going to do the same thing here and say, well, I want you to calculate those for me, and let's do this and see what happens. Oh, it broke. Why does it break? So what it's doing is it's saying, okay, as you drag that across, I can see that that is this number, right? B3 times this number. So as you drag it across, I'll assume you want that number times that number. Why is it going there? Because it's dragging each one of those elements across. So to stop that, for the J1, I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of it and say, I don't want you to move that. I want you to keep that as a constant. And now when I drag it across, there you go. Dollar sign in front of it. And the reason you do, so if I did just dollar sign J, it would keep that when I drag it that way, but I could also drag it down and it will always keep that number for me because I've got the one in front of the one. So you might say, right, well, I calculate that, and then for every customer I need, 27,000 popsicle sticks or something. So that might be another constant that I'll put over here, and then I'll calculate how many popsicle sticks I need by counting that by this variable here. Now, if I change that, let's say the average customer value is only 12. When I tab across or update that, you'll see all these values update. This is a really cool way. This is really, with just this knowledge, you can build an entire cash flow forecast. Build it up over time. Let it serve you. Has that been useful, or have I just wasted 3 minutes of everybody's life that they're never going to get back? Or has everybody gone to sleep and gone and made another cup of coffee? Yes, and what is the equation called? I call him Steve. No, sorry, I don't think there's actually a name for the equation. What you're doing is setting a constant and allowing that to do calculations for you. But as I say, just with that little amount of information, the fact that you can use constants and drag a cell to fill in other cells, it makes it so quick to do stuff. Even yesterday, I was in one of the stores and we were trying to work out, they were keeping track of how many clients our clinical staff had seen and how many telehealth things we'd done. And they were just typing the numbers in, then trying to work it out and calculate it and then type it in. And very quickly using this kind of formula, I said, right, well, the telehealth is always this, and this is always this. So let's just drag those across for the weeks. And now just the numbers will tell you the prices, and it just calculates it all for you. So honestly, that took like 2 minutes. So get the handle of this sort of stuff, play with it, because it really makes a big difference if you can set up constants and start to give things a better understanding in your brain of what's going on. Understand your business metrics. The next step, I guess, getting slightly bigger is comprehensive financial planning. And sometimes, number one was reducing debt, but sometimes debt can be useful. In business financials, using other people's money to grow allows you to write it off as a tax deduction. And so sometimes debts can be useful, but you want to speak to a financial planner about that, or your accountant or your bookkeeper if they're particularly good. Get advice. And if you don't believe the advice, if they even sound hesitant, then get second advice. Spend the money to ask someone's professional their opinion on what's going on. This is your financial future that you are playing with here. And it's not just yours, like it's your kids as well. So really take this stuff seriously. And lastly, get some good investment advice. Even if you only have a small amount to invest, get some investment advice so that as you grow, as you get more, your money should continue to work for you. The money I've made over the years, it continues to work for me. I don't have to keep working to make that money work. That money just works for me. Okay? And I would suggest you do the same. Get some good investment advice. Now, we did take a little bit of a side road there into the world of Excel and constants. But are there any questions? Remember, I said at the start, please, if you have something specific that you're looking to get out of tonight, please let me know. I don't want to waste your time. Time is the most precious thing you've got. So if I can give you back more times. Excellent question. So in terms of a consultancy, the question is, what metrics would you use for a consultancy type business? So if you're doing consulting, you're doing work for people. So how many clients do you need? What is the average cost per client or billing per client? How much work do you do per client? I would build that into a cash flow. And then I would then play with the numbers to see how many, so then you work backwards from that. So how many leads lead to how many customers lead to how much sales? And then look at that. And then the next step up from that is then to look at, in terms of business growth, how much can you take on? Are you at capacity? What will happen when you get to capacity? And then what marketing things, actions are you taking that deliver the best results? So again, I say, measure, measure, measure. If you find that a specific LinkedIn campaign gives you higher volume of clients but lower revenue from those clients, versus Facebook, which might give you a lower amount but a higher revenue, which one do you go for? Well, if you're measuring, you can tell. You can actually pick. But if you're not measuring, you go, well, that was pretty successful. What the hell does pretty mean? Don't go for pretty. Write down some numbers, and the numbers should make sense to you. So in terms of a consultancy business, what is the capacity? What is your dollars per hour? Don't be afraid of playing with what you charge. I do get this quite a bit where, oh, well, I've charged this, so, I've got to keep charging that. No, you don't. You absolutely have no obligation to continue to charge a set price unless you have it written into a contract. Times are changing. Due to COVID, I have to put my prices up. Due to, I kind of feel like it, I'm going to put my prices up. Because we're quite quiet, I'm going to lower my prices. So, but set up the clients for success in that regard, especially if you're like a consultancy and you do have a set of clients. Set them up for success in that. Remind them that your rates will be flexible throughout the year from time to time. We may need to update our date, and give them a warning of that. One of the things I find when I first start coaching with a business is that they will have clients on all sorts of different pricing models. There's the early adopters that got in when, well, I didn't think I was worth that much, and so I only charged this. So what do we do with those? Well, we tell them, right, we now offer way more services than when you started, and we're going to put the price up to this level. But because you're a long-term client, we're going to incrementally increase it to that level over the next 6, 12 months, whatever it happens to be. At any point, if you find that this is too much for you, I have a recommendation for someone else who might be able to help you out. That's it. Move on. All right. What tends to happen with that is that those that that don't hang around were firstly probably the ones that were taking up a lot of time anyway, and they then find that they're not prepared to pay the full rate. So, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. I actually don't have a theory, but it does seem to be the case that the tire kickers, the guys that cause the most amount of problems, you will usually drop off if you put the prices up, and you'll be left with good clients. Cool problem to have, eh? All right, if there are no more questions on the building blocks, let's move on. And let's start to talk about some tools for maximizing money. So we talked about budgets, and we've talked about Excel and being able to put that together. You can do budgeting in a whole bunch of different tools, such as Xero and QuickBooks, and there's My Budget. I just tend to use Excel. You know, I like the flexibility of being able to pick the measures that are important to me for now. And just because you pick a measure does not mean you need to keep measuring it for the rest of eternity. If it becomes a thing that is just taking care of itself, stop measuring. But if it's not, measure it for now. Some of your key performance indicators, your gross profit margin, is it where you want it to be? So, as I said, if you can do less work for more money, that might just mean that you need, you know, to achieve that, it might just mean that you need to review your pricing. There's also the case that to have a look at your product mix. So the example I'll use is a client of mine, a lawyer in LA, in Beverly Hills, actually, as it turns out, 90214. I actually was like so disappointed when I heard that. Can't you be 90210? He goes, dude, there's no businesses there. Like, okay, fair enough. So 90214, and they were very keen to talk about their big wins, their multi-million-dollar settlements, or million-dollar settlements anyway. And so what we did a product analysis of, these really big cases that have huge payouts, and the really little cases. Now in California, I think it's like 15,000 is the smallest amount of insurance you can get, or is it 7,000? I can't remember now. It's been a while. Let's say it's 15,000, and pretty much everybody settles because it's such a small amount. Like to go through the paperwork, and it takes about 2 to 3, sometimes 4 hours to get that work done. So their payout on that is something like $3,000. So for a couple of hours work, I'll get $3,000. What it worked out is the really large cases, because so much work had gone into it, their dollar per hour rate was actually lower than the small cases. I've had another one where a manufacturer produced one tiny widget that the cost per sale on this tiny little widget, which was in the back corner of the store, if he only sold those, he would be a millionaire within a year. But we're selling everything else, and so he wasn't selling enough of the little widgets. So we didn't ditch everything else in favor of the widget, but what we did was we moved it to the front of the store. We actually upped the amount of widgets we sold, massively changing the product mix, and in turn, gross profit margin. So have a think about it. Certainly if you're in consultancy, what are the consultancies that are more profitable than others? If you're a product, what are the products that are more profitable? You're retail, what are the retail things that are more profitable? Play with your product mix. Have a look at your sales funnel conversion and drop-off rates. So if we were talking before, some of the metrics that I use, how many leads lead to how many proposals. Certainly in a consultancy, you have leads will lead to proposals lead to sales, and at that point, hopefully you're turning sales into gross profit. But what's the drop off between that? Are you doing a 50% conversion, or is it an 80% conversion, or is it 10% conversion? So, and all the numbers are fine. If it's a 10% conversion, that's fine. But if you need 10 clients and a 10% conversion, you're going to just need 100 leads. Great, now you know. Go out and get 100 leads. But if your marketing strategy is to drop muffins off to people, then does 100 make sense with that strategy now? What is the cost of acquisition? I had a client in the office 2 weeks ago, and their cost of acquisition. So what does it cost for them to get a client, or what can they spend on getting a client? So there's two ways of looking at it. If you know what you're currently spending, cost of acquisition, or what could you be making? So in terms of consultancy, if you know your average consultancy returns a $5,000 profit, and you're prepared to spend 10% on that, so you can spend $500 to acquire each client. Their cost of acquisition for clients was something like $987 per client they could spend per year, and make that back in the first year, and it was a 4-year contract. Now, up until that point, I think they'd been spending like about $10 per client. But when we did the numbers, it proved that there was so much money to be made per client that the cost of acquisition could go right up. They could actually spend a hell of a lot more on marketing, knowing that they were going to recoup it back even within the first year. And then years 2, 3, and 4, because it's a 4-year contract, were all profit. So actually understanding what your cost of acquisition is really, really useful, because it helps determine what your marketing is going to be. Accounts payable and turnover. Do you give 90 days? Do you give 7 days? Do you get payment up front? What would be your preference? Here's a hint: payment up front. Get your money in advance. Get it in advance of advance. I've got a client that they do wedding photography. They will get a deposit a year out, and they'll get another 50% 2 weeks before, and then the final amount before the shoot. How cool is that? They're fully flush. They've got their funds. People are willing to pay. If they're willing, if you can ask, get your payment up front. And I think that's a bit of a difference between what we see as products and services. I tend to productize everything where I can. Never sell a service. Never sell services. Only ever sell products. The difference between a product and service: a product, it may be flexible, but it's not infinitely changeable. Whereas a service, you can do anything. Products are paid for up front, and something will land on your desk to say that you bought it. So what we do, even with consultancy type stuff, is try and work things out so that they are products rather than services. Dentals, even things like dentists or lawyers, they use packages, so it's a product, not a service. I've yet to find a company that is offering a service that we cannot convert to a product. So if you are in the service industry, have a think about that. Of course, if you've got a question on that, throw it into the chat window and I'll see if I can answer it. I'm not going to bang on about cash flow forecasts anymore, because I've already done that a hell of a lot. But understand what your market share is. One of the, when I said, when I look at a business, one of the two things that I do is the cash flow forecast. Do you remember what the second one was? An environmental scan. So what that is, it's a fancy term for, I just look at the environment in which the business is going to be operating. So, competitors, are there lots? What's the barrier to entry? Will a shift in political states or some sort of regulation change what I can do? Is that a risk? And if so, how can I get around it? Is there any environmental risks that I need to consider? What's the rate of growth? Is this like a trend that's on at the moment, or is it a trend that's reducing? Recently, with a partner, we started a new newspaper. Now, if you ask anyone, our newspapers are on the rise or on the decline. They're definitely on the decline, and I 100% agree. But they're not dead yet, and there's still money to be made in this particular market for the right people. So, environmental scan. So how big is the market share? And how much do you control of that? When I started Coaching Life magazine, one of the first things I did was look at how many coaches there are in the country. And so I sort of analyzed the life coaches, the business coaches, which is slightly harder because, you know, a lot of them call themselves consultants, or various different words around that. And then sports coaches. And it was interesting, I found a statistic on the Australian Bureau of Statistics site that was saying that in 2016, 460,000 people in Australia identified themselves with the word coach. 416,000 people thought they are a coach in one way or another. I thought that was fascinating because that's actually more than all the doctors, nurses, police, dentists, electricians, plumbers, all put together. So when someone said there's a coach under every rock, I'm like, hell yeah, there is. There's only more teachers than there are coaches. And so by doing that, why am I telling you that? Because by doing that, Coaching Life magazine included all the sports coaches, because very quickly I realized if I wasn't including that, I was missing a massive part of the market. And as a byproduct of that, life coaches now share information with business coaches who share information with sports coaches and all the way around. So understand your market share and what you can do around that. You know, can you control 10% of the market? Is that a goal you should set for yourself? Any questions on any of that before I move on? I will check it out. It's been a long time since I put these slides together, so maybe that might, yeah, we do have sales in there twice. You have to have a look at that. So if you were in a group, and I would guess that I put these questions to you, how do you get stats like that? In terms of your market size, there's this thing called Google, and you can ask it almost anything, well-formed questions, but Australian Bureau of Statistics. The other one is, and this is less well known, we have a Queensland government statistician. You can ask the statistician's office almost anything, and they are funded to give you answers. Like, it's a great question, Jackie, because I actually worked for the government statistician's office, and so quite often I forget that not everybody knows this, and in fact almost nobody knows this. But if you're a business in Queensland, I think it's the same in WA. If it's anyone in WA, there is a government statistician, and they have a team of people who will answer your statistics questions. So if you say, I'm in Logan and I would like to know how many consultancy businesses there are in Logan. So as long as you can have a well-formed question, so is there a specific type of consultancy that you're looking for, then you just give it to them and they'll go and see if they can find an answer for you. You know, what is the rate of growth of males over 40 that are smoking in my area? I don't know. Great. Define what your area is and then give that to the government statistician's office and let them work it out. It is actually a really, really cool service. But then well-formed questions on Google can also help you out in that as well. But, you know, sometimes asking a person who's in touch with the answer is the best way forward. I remember my dad was talking about Scientific American, and they put a question in Scientific American using a barometer. How can you tell the height of the building, prize will be awarded to the most creative use of the to get the answer. And the one that won was the guy that went up to the caretaker of the building, and he bribed him for a look at the plans for a very nice barometer. The person who has the answer is the person that you want to ask. You could use the barometer and lower on a piece of the string and measure the bar pressure at the top and the bottom, or you could measure the string itself, or you could time the fall using a stopwatch, and then knowing that, you know, you could measure the shadow of the barometer and the shadow of the building, and then by triangulation work it all out. We could just ask the guy that knows. It sticks with me because it's one of the my key go-tos is the first question is, what don't I know? The second question is, who would know? Right? Go to a person if you can. So where is your cash going? Do you have a good understanding of where it all is? Or at the end of the month, you go, I feel like that was a good month, but the bank balance doesn't show it. That is the classic sign that you don't know where your cash is going. So solve that for yourself if that is your problem. If that is not your problem, then what are the key metrics and how often should you check them? So write down a few of the key metrics for yourself. What are the key things that you'd like to know? What will that do to inform your business? And as I said, you know, start small. Start by adding a few key metrics in, and then add metrics over time. Let it grow for you, but give yourself a space of learning that stuff as you go. I can guarantee if you have a great control of your financials, you have a great understanding of your financials, you're in a much better position to make informed, good decisions. So your homework. So I guess for me, I would say, you know, in terms of coaching, I always ask you to decide what your own homework is. But for you, I guess, decide on what the most important thing to work on is and get done this week. You know, it's Wednesday, we've got a long weekend coming up. Give yourself some time on the long weekend to actually sit and think about what it is you want to know. What steps can you make to actually start to understand your financials? What are the bits and pieces in your financials that you'd actually really like to know? And then how will you measure them? Pen and paper, Excel spreadsheet. Remember, the tool has to serve you, not the other way around. If you could spend like weeks trying to work out how to do it in Xero. Honestly, it's 2 weeks you really didn't need to spend. Just do it in Excel and get on with it. Have a look at your cash flow forecast. If you haven't got one, if you haven't done one, have a bit of a play. If you really get stuck, send me an email and I'll help you out. Have a look at what your key performance indicators, or your key business indicators are for you. And put together your own budget. You know, I still maintain a personal budget. I have a budget for every business. So understand what it is you want to spend, understand what it is you want to make, cash flow forecast, and then look at your key business indicators. We are finishing up a little fraction early, but I think that's okay, isn't it? If you guys have any questions, I'll hang around for a sec, but what I might do is I might stop the recording there. So if you're playing along at home, I hope you've got something out of it. Please do the homework because it will serve you, and I will catch you up with you in another webinar.